have always been involved with the arts because my father's an architect, my aunt was in the art business, my mother is an historian, so our house always had art on the walls, and museums were just places that we went to when we traveled. So I can't remember when I didn't think about art or architecture or design. And I worked at I think the seminal moment was when I was at the cusp of, I guess, going to college. I worked for one summer at the Museum of Modern Art. I had a great internship. Well, you know, the internship was typing, it was clerical, but it was at MOMA.
Yeah.
And it was the summer of a huge Picasso retrospective. And the museum bug was just unavoidable because I had access to Picasso on the days that the museum was closed, and wandering through those galleries without crowds was the thing that I remember thinking, this is an incredible privilege, this is a great experience. And I thought about working in museums ever since then. I have a great staff. There were some amazing shows already on the books. We opened the Monica Bengoa exhibition, which is terrific. She's a Chilean artist who works with words, and her technique, her actual artistic technique techniques are, I call obsessive, and I love obsessive artists. She works in felt, she works with textile, and she works with words, and she's very conceptual. And then we opened Shu Bing exhibition on Saturday, and he's a world-renowned artist. And it's actually, this show is incredibly ambitious for a museum this size. It really is outstanding, and it's fabulous. When the doors open, I think people are going to be just gaga. You know, I went to women's college, Bryn Mawr, and interestingly enough, we really, it was the typical canon was the white male canon. And you know, you look back in the main textbooks we used, Jansen, I think actually the methodology that was most experimental at the time was talking about Marxism. So that was kind of a stretch. But the beginning of you know, the sort of feminism had already really sort of, you know, started a few years before I went to college, but it hadn't entered into academia. Except that I will say, as a kind of diversion, my mother did publish a book on women in the ancient world. So that was, I think, 1970, in the late 1970s. But as I say, this kind of stuff really takes a while to infiltrate curricula. And after I graduated and went to Columbia, I can't say that much had really changed, but we were starting to do things like think about what were called marginal or peripheral arts at the time, which was African, Native American, and but Columbia did have, in fact, a fabulous professor who taught those areas. She was a great Africanist. And there was a terrific professor on staff who taught Southeast Asian art as well. But I became a Europeanist, which is kind of, I'd come in thinking I was going to do contemporary. I left with a dissertation in 19th century European. But it's changed radically. I mean, you know, in the last 25 years, certainly. There's been so much more you know, so much, I think students these days don't even know a time when you wouldn't be discussing people of color, or you would never think about, you know, I don't know, Native American arts as marginalized. You know, there's a whole new way of thinking about the world, and that's more inclusive. And that's really how it's changed tremendously. And in some ways, I'd say quickly. You know, the job of director changes. I think there's no single job description. I think it really is according to the needs of the museum at that time. You know, in this particular case, I'm under the FIU umbrella. But mostly setting a vision, setting a tone, creating an identity for the organization, and finding money.
Yeah.
That's it. This is, you know, these are, it's been tough times. It's been tough times, you know, since federal dollars are few, government dollars are fewer. We look to individuals and to, those are the big donors now, is individual giving. That's where the money is. I think that, especially working with kids, as I mentioned, as a sort of major focus for the Frost, I have seen how, and even with my kids' friends, you know, kids learn differently, and a lot of them learn better by doing, by making art, and then they can start making connections, using art to learn math, using art to learn, you know, to learn science. People learn in different ways. And it's so sad to take the art out of education because so many kids are, they're visual. And they can make those kinds of connections visually.
Yeah.
So you know,
and
it's
tactile.
And tactile.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
need to physically be part of something, so it makes you grow. You know, making art. My husband was like that. You know, he wasn't a traditional student until an art teacher said, "You know, come with me," and that was it. He became an artist, and that's how he, you know, best communicates. He makes things.